It is exactly 8:28, 20 a.m. news and views on Salam Media. And of course, we're 2.5 months away, literally, to the end of the year. People making arrangements and preparations for the year-end holidays. And then, of course, once that is over, it's the new year and all of the shockers, price hikes of all types start up. And we just kind of feel pretty despondent and very depressed about our lot in life, very especially when it comes to Eskom. Now, the bad news is that Eskom, wants to increase electricity prices by 36% on the 1st of April 2025. But research shows that the power utility already charges way too much. So, what on earth is going on? And I kind of also asked the question, is government going to step in and say not on? Or is it going to be us as civilians, the public outcry that's going to create some sort of pushback regarding this matter? Energy expert Chris Yelland is online to talk to us about this ridiculous and outrageous issue. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning to you, Julia, and to all your listeners.
Thank you. How does Eskom even justify something as outrageous as this? And as we all know, once again, it's going to be the poorest of the poor that is going to be the brunt of this increase.
Well, they justify it on the basis that they have not been given adequate price increases for years, according to them, by the regulator, and nor do they get a fair return on assets employed. So if you look at the current Electricity Regulation Act, Eskom is supposed to be allowed to recover its prudent and efficiently incurred operating costs, plus a fair return on capital employed, in setting its prices. And the job of the regulator is to consider all its costs and to make sure that only efficiently and prudently incurred costs are passed through the customer in the tariff. Now, Eskom say that their prices are 30% too low in order to recover their costs. Of course, the answer to that is that cost-reflective tariffs can, of course, be obtained by putting up the price, but they can also be obtained by cutting the costs. And there is a lot of fat in the system, and they really need to downsize their business in terms of the number of staff, in terms of their operations, and really, I think the way forward is to diversify the sources of electricity so that there is a competitive environment, and this is what drives efficiency and cutting of costs to the right level. We don't want costs that are too low because that inhibits investment in the sector, but we certainly don't want prices that are too high, which inhibits the whole economy of South Africa. And I think the way Eskom looks at things is they don't even think about cutting costs. They only consider putting up their prices to achieve cost reflectivity. And the reality is that it needs to be a combination of both.
So, Chris, in your, being an energy expert, you do say that Eskom has to increase the tariffs so that they can then supply electricity uninterruptedly, hopefully, going forward. And you also say that if they don't, if the costs are too low, we're not going to get investment as far as Eskom is concerned. And we are we need the foreign investment. However, Eskom has been riddled by corruption and obviously financial instability over the past so many years. They haven't answered those issues. They haven't brought anyone to book for those issues and to try and recover those lost monies. Why should you and I now be paying for the price of their inefficiencies?
Yeah, look, firstly, just to say that yes, Eskom has in fact put a lot of effort into trying to recover some of these losses that were irregularly stolen from Eskom. But in respect of bringing people to book, it's actually not Eskom's job to bring people to book. It's the national prosecuting authorities, the police, and the judicial system. And I think they have also failed South Africa in not bringing these criminals to book. Yes, there have been some mid and low level prosecutions, but the big fish are still swimming out there. And that's a failure that goes beyond Eskom. But no doubt about it, there has been a huge amount of inefficiency, maladministration, corruption, and costs that have occurred at Eskom that needs to be brought under control. I mean, one of the biggest cost items on Eskom's income statement is finance costs, and that relates to the very high level of Eskom debt. Now, this debt has, to a very significant degree, been incurred by cost and time overruns at Medupi and Kusile. And this is a combination of corruption, maladministration, poor project management, and they kind of lost control of these projects to the extent that even today, 15 years later, and a decade of overtime, time overruns, the project is still not fully completed. It's getting close to being completed, but it should have been completed 10 years ago. And these cost overruns have caused very high finance costs. So that is one of the results of maladministration, poor project management, corruption, fraud, and all these things that we know have happened at Medupi and Kusile. These things have to be brought under control. One hopes they are starting to get a grip on it, but there are many layers of management and people that are in positions that they shouldn't be in, that have abused the system mercilessly, feeding off this state-owned utility. There's a whole ecosystem of criminals out there who feed off this public enterprise.
Undoubtedly, they do have a bloated workforce, and we also understand that years of above inflation salary increases. These are also issues that impact on what we're talking about right now, and that is unfair electricity hikes. In your opinion, Chris, what do you believe would be a fair increase in electricity prices going forward? Fair and affordable, obviously.
Yeah, and you see, that is actually the job of the regulator. He has got to balance, the regulator's got to balance the needs of Eskom to run a sustainable business with ensuring that the interests of customers and the economy are met. And that means to ensure that only prudently and efficiently incurred costs are passed through the customer in the tariff. Now, the Minister of Electricity and Energy has stepped into this fray and said that really government accepts that these price increases that have been applied for by Eskom are outrageous. They are too high. They are unaffordable. They will hurt the poor. They will hurt the whole economy, and something has got to be done about it. We are yet to hear the details of what government intends to do about it. But I think, as usual, the regulator will not give Eskom what it asks for. So they've asked for a 36% increase. I reckon they might get half of that. And even that, if half of 36 is, I think, is 19 and 9, 38, so 17 or so, that means that it's probably going to be 3 times the inflation rate, which is going to hurt, and it's going to have an inflationary impact across the economy, because electricity is used in every aspect of the economy. But anyway, the regulator's got to balance the needs to keep Eskom sustainable with the interest of the customer and the economy. And in the past, they have never given Eskom what it asked for, and I don't expect it to happen this time.
Chris, in closing, then, what concerns me is I've read in a report that this could spark social and civil unrest in our country. Um, and I think the consequences could be very, very dire. Would you go along with that sentiment?
Yeah, I do go along with that. And it is a fear. And I'm not trying to fearmonger, nor am I trying to incite civil unrest. But the reality is that when you have these kind of price increases in an environment where there's very high unemployment, social unrest is a possibility. And one only has to look at what happened recently in Kenya,
Mm,
where government tried to increase a particular tax, and the people, the poor people, dug their heels in, and they said no, and they embarked on a massive campaign of some civil unrest and protest, a lot of damage to property and all of that. And in the end, what happened? The president does an about turn and cancels the increase. Now, that is kind of sending a message. Politicians obviously are concerned about their public support. That's their power base. They need to listen to people. And if they embark on and they don't oppose these sort of increases, there can be very dire consequences, unfortunately. And I think, the government is cognizant of that. The Minister of Electricity
mm,
and Energy is cognizant of that. Well, that is why he is making these noises now, to say that this is unacceptable. We have to step in. We have
right.
to do something. We have to look at what ways we can mitigate this. Now, there's going to be a price increase, a significant price increase, but it cannot be 36%. That is for sure.
Okay, Chris, that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you indeed for your thoughts on this issue. We hope and pray it doesn't come to pass, and we hope that it's reasonable so that we don't have further problems in the country. You go well. Thank you once again, and God bless.
Thank you, Julia.
It is exactly 8:32 a.m. News and Views moving along. We're going for our ad break, and thereafter we're going to be crossing over to Kashmir to talk with our next guest, and that is Advocate Malik Amir.